Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian, and today we have a full package because today we talk about number 54, 55, 56 and 57 of the CK3 Dev Diaries. So there's a lot to be talked about, a lot when it comes to why I didn't talk about these previously. In the past I did one Dev Diary video weekly and then this sort of faded out after the release of Northern Lords. I did a couple of videos there because we had Dev Diaries that talked about the features and the story of the features that came with Northern Lords, but then we had stuff like a sound plan, and this is, don't get me wrong, a great dev diary. If you haven't checked this one out, it is linked in the description, and you can listen to some of the works here that the sound team has created, of course, as you can find them in-game as well. Now, most of this is, of course, the work of Andreas Waldetoft, or rather, the compositions are the work of Andreas Waldetoft, who has been doing, Paradox soundtracks. I don't know, the first ones that I heard, of course, was Hearts of Iron 2, with some amazing tracks that I will never forget. But the reality is, I can't tell you any interesting things about this, and I reckon that many of you probably can't tell me any interesting things either, because most of us aren't musicians. This is an amazing dev diary, but there's very little info that I can actually talk about and have a proper conversation with. Now, let's move on from this one. I didn't make a video on this one because of that, and in this week, I already thought to myself, I want a roadmap. I want a timeline of what to expect. We have this pass for CK3 where there's 2 flavor packs and then there is 1 big expansion, and we know nothing about the expansion. Now, back in the day, I already suspected, as many others I assume, that we would likely see the announcement of the expansion during PDXCon, which is in May. I believe it is like the 22nd to the 24th, and that is fine and good, but let's just highlight this a bit. That's what I was thinking. This is a nice dev diary, but I need a look forward towards the future. And then came dev diary number 55, and it was a very short one. This is a modding dev diary. It informs us that there will be a patch coming called 1.3.x. Of course, long term, this will have a proper number, so 1.3.3, for example. But no matter how it is, this is a modding dev diary. Most of this stuff here means nothing to anyone watching. Let me edit effect, remove dynasty perk. Okay, no, actually, you understand what that means, but let's just say stuff like edit data function, get traits with flag, and get traits without flag. Well, here's the thing. I talk to modders on a daily basis, essentially. I am in so many modding discords, it's insane. And I have a great time looking in, having a look at their discussions, at their conversations, because there is so much passion, so much quality in these discords. And I have seen, and I might be able to put that into the video somewhere, I have seen mentions where the devs, essentially talk to the modders directly, and they mentioned this here as well, that they talk to the co-op mod, no, rather to the modding co-op Discord, and I know there was even a full list, a huge list going around that the modders from the co-op filled out together, and that is now being approached and fulfilled by the devs. So this is great, absolutely outstanding news. I can just tell you that this is one of the projects where I can say CK3 is clearly the game that cares so much about the modders. It is insane. Frankly, this is, even for Paradox, who are always modding friendly and always have been, this is a first when it comes to the involvement of the development teams and the communication with the mod co-op. But with that being said, this was not a dev diary where I can say, yes, we will benefit from the edit trigger has innovation flag. I mean, actually, this makes sense, right? It means that you need to have a certain innovation to do things in mods. For example, you can maybe activate events like that. You can activate decisions. You might be able to activate many other things for that, I'm not quite sure, but this is one of the many things that were on the list of the mod co-op. So, again, great news, but nothing that I can truly talk about at length. Here comes the next good one, though, because obviously, after the 54th dev diary was already frustrated about no timeline. 55 was good, and the modders were ecstatic about it when I talked to them, but still no timeline. And then 56 came last week, and 56 was great even for me. I didn't do a dev diary video then, mostly because I thought that 56 still was a bit empty, and this in the end was a good choice, because now we're going to stick to the dev diaries, we're going to actually talk about them, because as you can see, 57 was also a good one. That one talked about the events that are coming in the upcoming Azure patch. Let's take a look at 56 first. This week we have a few announcements to make. Firstly, as you saw in the last dev diary, we mentioned the number 1.3.x, and that of course will be coming around this summer. They're aiming at this summer. As you already know, we tend to name patches using heraldic terms, and now that is Azure. The Azure patch is a free patch, and there will not be any paid content coming out at the same time. It'll focus on improving the stability of the game, fixing bugs, adding quality of life, balancing various systems, and adding some small features requested by the community. I was ecstatic when I read that. I can tell you that much. We'll not go into many details in this diary. Instead, you can look forward to more info in some of the upcoming dev diaries. Until then, there is a first teaser of some of the first improvements that you will find in the patch. First of all, the War Declaration window. The War Declaration UI flow will be revisited in order to better highlight your opponent's strength and the different objectives available for a given Casus Belli. I've heard a number of times that people try to go for a kingdom conquest, for example, of a specific kingdom, but instead they went for the wrong one. You know, if somebody holds one province in Norway and then the entirety of Sweden, they wanted Sweden, but didn't change the objective in the button. It is easy to miss if you don't know where it is, and instead just took this one province in Norway. So this is definitely a good step. I also talked about how the numbers of strength aren't really accurate. I hope that they implement something that shows, hey, this character that is allied to your enemy is currently in a war of their own, meaning they won't actually join your enemy on the battlefield until that war's over, because right now it doesn't tell you that. And I just did the warfare tutorial, and I think getting a feeling from the comments that most people weren't aware of that at all, that is a mechanic. So this is also a good change. And then they are also adding starting men-at-arms that are supposed to be fitting for the region and the person that is in. So here you can see Duchess Matilda. She gets, what is that, pikemen. She gets some onagers. She gets some light horsemen. Or is that, I think that is light horsemen, yeah. And then some archers as well. This is a pretty good start. Makes it so that the AI can't be overwhelmed early on. Doesn't have to spend any resources on it. It essentially just takes this phase where everybody just, you know, needs money to build up some men-at-arms and says this phase no longer exists. You can immediately have your men-at-arms and then just go build up your domain, get more men-at-arms, etc, etc. I think this is also a great change. We hope to release Azure this summer before the vacation season. So the vacation season in Sweden is something very specific. They have a very long pause in there. And everybody gets it, which is absolutely great, by the way. They definitely like need breaks as they go. Late June and ends by the end of July. So hopefully, if everything goes well, this would be a start to mid-June. We'll see whether that will actually be the case. And depending on how the plans go, of course, might release during late summer. So that would be around August, probably, maybe end of July. But this is great so far, as I feel about it, that essentially we now have a timeline. We get a free patch that is just free content that comes with all of that stuff, and we're going to get that in the summer, either in the early or in the late summer. And then on top of that, another thing, and this is huge for me, we're actively working with is improving multiplayer stability, although this is separate from the upcoming Azure patch. We're currently collecting as much data as we can, and it is a process that will take time. At this point, we do not want to release the improvements as a patch. Instead, we're aiming to release an open beta on Steam where you can get access to some of the multiplayer improvements early. We highly recommend you use this open beta when playing with your friends. This version of the game will have extra multiplayer logging enabled so that any remaining issues can be found more easily. As a side effect of these additional logs, the game will run a bit slower both in multiplayer and in single player. If you notice a slowdown, you might want to switch back from the open beta for your single player sessions. I have been a mixture from mad to sad about the state of multiplayer in CK3. I have tried so many attempts in my own OPB Discord with the community members. The community has tried so many events. I know many other communities have tried so many events to see whether after any of the patches, so 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, runs stable. It never ever did. Now you can play, don't get me wrong, with about 2-3 people. That does work. Usually it will at some point start desyncing. But most of the time, if you go, for example, to 10, I think the current in-game max level is 32 people. If you go to 10 or above, it will desync all the time. It will desync all the time. And it's not an easy issue to fix. We have had difficult multiplayer situations in every Paradox game, but I was particularly frustrated with this one because CK2 was an amazing multiplayer game. Of course, I did the games with 75 people, which won't be possible here, but in all earnest, that was more gimmicky than anything else. If I could get a roleplay-oriented, 10-15 people game solidly going ever, I would do that on a weekly, if not more, basis. I would be incredibly excited for that. So far, not possible. But as you can see, a solution is coming. I will definitely be trying around with the multiplayer patch. If you are not in the Discord yet but want to participate, then consider joining. The link is somewhere on the channel. I think if you go on my channel page on the top right or in the About section, you will find the Discord link. But yeah, this is amazing news to me. So again, let's get back to the timeline that we now have thanks to this dev diary. We got the 1.3.x patch coming with modding improvements I think this was in the modding improvements included here, right? Yes, it will be. Okay. With the modding improvements, you got all that other stuff. Then you have a Steam Open, so you got all this, the quality of life, etc, etc. Then you get the Steam Open beta that comes before that. And that one will improve multiplayer significantly. I am incredibly excited for this. This timeline is already nice, but there is something else that still comes with this dev diary. Now, as most of you have already figured out, the first big expansion will be revealed during PDXCon in May. We're looking forward to then and to be able to share more details with you. During the week of PDXCon, we'll have a dev diary where we go into some details about parts of the expansion. We know that you'll be hungry for more info after seeing the show. After that diary, there will be some more Azure patch diaries before we start writing further expansion diaries. Just a heads up, as you know what to expect. Thank you. Who wrote this dev diary? It was Rager. Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you to all of the devs. I know from just, you know, from gossip, essentially, that the CK3 team has been expanded, and I want to thank everybody working there, primarily because this gives us an insight that CK3 has a lot coming. Otherwise, you don't need to expand the team, right? And what I understand is that, and what I saw in the files as well, is that Northern Lords was primarily created by content designers, while other folks, you know, coders, etc., programmers, were working on other things. We, of course, now have the situation where, for example, right here, they even have a new content designer that is Isabella, as you can see right there. So the team is clearly expanding, they're clearly working hard on something, and I'm excited, in all earnest, for the expansion. I'm excited for this road plan that we can then see the dev diaries further go into the Azure patch releases, and then we go towards the expansion dev diaries. Because this, for once, makes it actually so that we know what is in the future, what will come in the future, and what to expect there. I'm extraordinarily excited for that, I will tell you that much, and I think, with how much time has passed, and how many dedicated resources did explicitly not go into the Northern Lords DLC, but instead we're working on something secret, that the expansion will be truly massive. I said that in my Northern Lords video as well. I would love to hear what you think, but we have an expansion that will cost $30. That's a lot of money for an expansion, right? But it is also an expansion that comes after so many months without any new content and with so many people working on something that clearly hasn't seen the light of day. So it should be big. I'll be honest with you, my suspicion, my hope lies in trade and the Byzantine Empire, so the imperial government making it in, making something there. I could also see something related to generally just government forms, you know, that is something that I could definitely also see on the table. Maybe economy in general. As we know from the expansions, this is something where they want something that goes to the entire map. They essentially don't want to sit down and say we just do something that is only applicable to the Byzantine Empire. This should be something like, for example, in Stellaris, the newest DLC. I forgot the name, I'll be honest with you. It's not Leviathan, that's EU4. But the newest DLC in Stellaris is essentially something for the entire galaxy, right? Everybody in the galaxy can interact with that, and I'm certain that the expansion will be like that as well. Let me know in the comments what you think this expansion will be about. I am, honestly, yeah, I would love governments, I think. Maybe something society, you know, societies coupled with factions. There's so much, honestly. I might just make a speculation video with everything that I think it could be. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. I think these are all good signs. The fact that we now have a roadmap with the open beta, with 1.3.x, and then with the expansion is amazing to me, because before that we were entirely in the dark. Again, I will admit I got a bit frustrated about, well, these dev diaries, because as great as they are, they don't really show us anything, you know, about the expansion, about going into the future, and then 56 really, did me in. Honestly, 56 was really nice, was excellent. It essentially shut out my doubts there. Let's hope that the content that they will be announcing will be as excellent. Now let's move on to the actual dev diary of today. That is 57, an eventful summer. This one is written by Heptopus. Thank you so much again for all these updates. Before we get into the meat of today's dev diary, we want to clarify something regarding the Azure patch. It's made by a smaller group of CK3 devs in a strike team setup, which means that not everyone on the CK3 dev team is working on the patch. Makes sense, right? Because for some reason there are so many more developers, and yet their work hasn't seen the light of day. I'm just saying the expansion, hopefully, will be pretty big. It certainly smells like it to me. More specifically, I'm here to talk about some new content that we're including in Azure, and joining me in this dev diary is one of our new content designers, Isabella. Hello, Isabella. Let's, you know, take a look at what has been done here. Childhood. Children always want to grow up fast, and no child feels this more actually than the one that just inherited the entire realm at the mature age of 6. Oh, whoa. What can a young king do to pass the long days ahead until he can scheme and murder to his heart's content? Play with other young rulers, of course. Azure includes a new activity for children called Meet Peers that will make childhood more interesting and full of experiences. Everyone is here. As all the small lords and ladies are ushered into the room, I feel myself grow giddier and giddier. I'm thrilled that my cousin Prince Lampert and Gertrude, the daughter of the and heir of my vassal Count Benid, so this is in Hungary, I believe, could both make it. Now to mention Pongrash, the son and heir of my vassal Count Alec. That's pretty cool. I really like this. I like this a lot for sure. It's something, you know, people, and I personally as well, we talk about regencies, right? You don't really have any regency. Like, there is literally no regency in CK3, but I also thought that the regency in CK2 did nothing but slow you down. Yeah, your regent existed, and he was a bit of a, you know, behind, but at the same time, there was not really any interaction. I don't wish for the CK2 regencies to come back, but I wish for more events like this one, maybe with a regent, you know. Everything that is event-based makes it so that time passes better as you are a child. This is already a nice start. Meet Peers is an activity available for children where they can gather all young rulers and courtiers in the realm to just play and forget about the dreariness of life as a child in medieval times. All participants will lose stress and increase their opinion of the host, and the children attending the playdate can find themselves in fun and educational situations. Meet Peers, Brave Faris. Manzur, the son and heir of my vassal chieftain Farquhar, I get it, and I are watching the Faris train in the courtyard when my vassal chieftain Akam approached us with a smile. What do you say, children? I think you can handle the basics? Yes, or I would rather watch you train. For some reason, the character traits of this child give you both stress here. Probably we're a coward, you know, something like that. Maybe we're not really martial-oriented, but this is kind of nice. Just makes it so that you have an interaction, because most in CK3, of course, comes from relationships that you as a player build with other characters. And in this case, you could say, oh, Chieftain Farquhar was nice or was not nice to us. Very much welcoming this sort of stuff. Of course, there may also be a number of less wholesome consequences from bringing that many children together. Playing rough. I thought Ode, the son of my steward Duke Thibaud, honestly I don't know, and the peasant boy were merely pretending to fight, but suddenly there's blood in the dirt. Ode hits the ground with a grunt, and the peasant standing above him moves to attack again. I will save him. Someone please help. Oh, this looks like fun. Let me have a go. Ode de Blois becomes your victim. You lose stress because you're rowdy. Yeah, so this is oriented on the childhood traits. This is very good. Against the trait Wounded. Yeah, you can be a downright prick here, but I like this event. Makes it so that we form the relationships. You know, so far when you get a bully or when you bully people, it chooses it entirely randomly. In this case, you can say, no, I'm going to save him. You know, you have just more player agency. I'm a big fan for sure. And if socializing just isn't your thing and friends are easiest made and killed through schemes, we also reduce the age restrictions for sway and murder slightly, all to enable you to live out your scheming rule from as young an age as possible. I feel like when they say slightly, I feel like 14 maybe 12. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Scheming is something that a child most certainly do. Leading a war, I mean, probably not, but you can still declare wars as your council. You know, at the end of the day, you won't, of course, be really involved in it. Maybe a council expansion would also be nice. You know, like, just government, and then you got councils, you got to rework for tribal. Let's see where we go. Okay, seriously, the expansion, I got so many ideas. I wonder which one it actually will be. And now, then, last but not least in this Diary lifestyle events, or if your children just can't wait to grow up, you could let them try their fate fighting against grown soldiers in a tournament. In this patch, we have a couple of new lifestyle events coming your way, including the Tantrum Tourney event chain for martial authority characters. My marshal is hosting what seems the 100th tourney of the year, and it's all I can do to keep myself awake. My mind is jolted back to life when I feel a tug on my elbow. Look at the cheeks! Look at the comfy cheeks. My young son Roger, against all the odds of nature, is wobbling around carrying a lance 4 times his size and has found an ill-fitting helmet which keeps sliding down over his eyes. Father, may I fight around in the fray? I'd allow it, but order that no one hurt him. Or, of course, child, may no warrior hold back his wrath. Or be a good child and go play with the horses. I, all of a sudden, really want to do authority. I usually don't do authority, but this one just sounds too good not to do. Yeah, I love the puffy cheeks. I mean, this kid demolishing you on the battlefield in the Joust tournament. It can't be in the Joust tournament. Honestly, Joust probably. It can't be that easy to take that hit as a grown soldier, but I commanded you to not hurt my child, of course. Will you allow your baby's first bloodlust to be unleashed upon your knights who certainly did not sign up for this? Yes, every time. Especially if you have war elephants. Okay, let me read the entire text actually. Keep your eyes peeled while your character is studying their lifestyle. You might see a few moments cropping up, especially if you have war elephants. War elephants, okay. I definitely want to find those secret events once they come, but in general, I'm very happy about the Azure patch. Again, a lot of quality of life, a lot of when it comes to the topic of, you know, here is just the stability of the game, fixing bugs, various systems being balanced, etc., etc. Huge fan of this, huge fan of the timeline finally having arrived. Let me know what you think, but for the moment, I would like to thank you for watching, and I would like to thank the members of the channel, namely the Barons, the Counts, and the Dukes, of course. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you later. Alligator.